Strange, isn't it? How a person can move through life thinking they are fine, yet quietly walking toward a storm they cannot see. You wake up each morning, pour the same coffee into the same cup, check the same messages on your phone, and go about your day as if it's just another page in an endless book. But the truth is, the pages are numbered, and the ink runs thinner than you think. I have seen it too many times. Someone who believed they were strong, untouchable even, suddenly finding themselves in a hospital bed, a tangle of wires tracing the rhythm of a heart that once beat freely. They didn't collapse because of one bad day. It was years of small choices, overlooked warnings, and silent pressure building drop by drop. It's like an old bridge, standing tall through decades of rain, wind, and sun. The cracks are there long before the collapse, but they hide in plain sight. The surface still looks steady, the paint still fresh enough, and so no one bothers to look underneath until it's too late. The human body is no different. Stroke and heart attack rarely arrive without warning, but their warnings are not loud. They do not come with flashing lights or sirens. They are whispers, a brief dizziness you shrug off, a moment where your chest feels heavy, a night of poor sleep that turns into months, a slow breathlessness you blame on just getting older. High blood pressure is often the quiet hand behind both stroke and heart attack. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't shout. It just wears your vessels down over years, like water slowly carving stone. And while you're busy with work, family, or simply surviving the day, it is busy too, silently changing the map of your health. I once knew a man, always smiling, always saying he was too busy to go for a checkup. He said he felt fine, and maybe he truly believed it. Then one morning, in the middle of tying his shoes, his vision blurred, and his right hand slipped from the lace. He never finished tying that shoe. He survived, but his words after the stroke stayed with me. He said, "Doctor, I thought I had time. Most people think prevention means doing something big, running marathons, giving up everything they enjoy, but real prevention begins in smaller, quieter places. It begins in noticing, in listening to the body when it speaks in soft tones. It begins in the kitchen, in the grocery aisle, in the way you breathe at the end of a long day. You don't have to change your life overnight. You don't have to become someone else entirely, but you do have to start looking beneath the surface, to catch the cracks before the bridge gives way. Because stroke and heart attack are not just events that happen one day, they are the final chapter in a story that has been writing itself for years. And if you pay attention, you can change the story before it ends. It's not the single slice of cake or the one salty meal that harms you. It's the rhythm of days, the quiet repetition of small choices that seem harmless in the moment, but over time shape the walls of your arteries and the pace of your heart. You may not feel it as you reach for the extra spoon of sugar in your coffee, or the packet of instant noodles at midnight. You may not notice the way your body holds tension when you rush from task to task without breathing deeply, but your heart notices. Your blood vessels notice, and they keep the score even when you don't. Salt is a good example. It doesn't sting the way fire does, but it works in shadows. Too much of it slowly draws more water into your blood, pushing against the delicate walls of your arteries. At first, they stretch, they adapt, but as the years pass, they harden, they crack, and in those cracks, trouble begins. I've had patients who told me, "Doctor, I don't even use much salt." And yet when we looked closely, it was in the bread they bought, the sauces they loved, the snacks they reached for without thinking. Prevention isn't always about what you avoid in one moment. It's about what you notice every day. Then there's stress, the kind that doesn't make you cry or shout, but hums quietly under your skin. Maybe it's the pressure of deadlines. Maybe it's the unspoken tension in your home. Maybe it's the silent belief that if you stop for too long, everything will fall apart. This kind of stress doesn't just live in the mind. It seeps into the heart, quickening the pulse, tightening the vessels, making the body live as if danger is always near. And speed, the invisible habit of moving through life too quickly. We eat too fast, work too fast, even rest too fast. The body was built to have moments of stillness, to reset the rhythm of the heart and the flow of blood. Without them, you're like a car driven hard every day without ever cooling the engine. At first it runs fine, then one day, without warning, it overheats. I think of a woman I once treated. She ran a small shop and told me she couldn't take breaks because customers might come in at any moment. So she ate standing up, slept late, woke early, and carried her worries into bed every night. By the time she came to see me, her blood pressure was so high it frightened even her. But what she said stayed with me. She said, "I thought this was just life." We forget that the body has limits, not because it is weak, but because it was never designed to run without pause. Just as a heart was never meant to beat in fear or tension all day long. Stroke and heart attack do not always arrive because of one dramatic mistake. They arrive because we lived too long in ways that wore the body down without us noticing. It's strange how easy it is to see when a roof needs repair or when a garden needs water, yet we can live inside a body for decades without noticing the small signs of wear. But prevention, real prevention, begins the moment you decide to look closer and to listen, even when the body speaks in whispers. Before the body falls, it almost always speaks. The trouble is, it doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply leaves clues that are easy to brush aside. You might wake one morning with a slight heaviness in your chest. It fades before the coffee is ready, so you think nothing of it. Or maybe your vision blurs for a few seconds while you're reading, but clears before you've turned the page. Perhaps your hand feels clumsier than usual. The fork slipping from your grip once or twice at dinner. You laugh it off, call it nothing. But the body doesn't speak without reason. I've seen people ignore these small signs not because they were careless, but because they didn't fit the picture they had in their mind. They imagined a heart attack as a sudden collapse, a stroke as an instant paralysis. What they didn't know is that for many, the real beginning is quieter, a series of moments, days, sometimes weeks, where the body tests the line between health and harm. A man I treated once told me about a strange fatigue that crept in months before his stroke. He could still work, still drive, still laugh with friends, but he felt slower inside, like walking through water instead of air. He thought it was just age, or the weather, or maybe he needed more sleep. By the time he came in, the warning had already turned into something more: small changes in speech, a fleeting confusion over simple words, a stumble you didn't expect. They can pass so quickly that you convince yourself it's nothing. Yet in the language of the body, these are not random. They are the quiet rehearsals for something bigger. The heart, too, leaves its messages. Sometimes it's a sudden shortness of breath after climbing a flight of stairs you've taken for years without trouble. Sometimes it's an unfamiliar pressure in the jaw, the neck, or the back instead of the chest. Many people don't know that heart pain doesn't always sit where you expect it. The tragedy is that so many of these moments are lived alone, unnoticed by anyone else, and dismissed by the person who feels them. And yet, this is the point where prevention is still possible, where a small step toward care can change the entire story. I often tell patients, Think of your body as a friend you've known your whole life. You know when their voice sounds different, when their smile is thinner than usual. The same way, you can learn the quiet difference in yourself, the small ways your body says something is not right, even when you still feel mostly fine. Listening doesn't mean living in fear. It means respecting that the body is honest, and that catching these whispers is far kinder than waiting for the storm. Health is not only shaped by what we eat or how we move. It is shaped by the spaces we spend our lives in, the quiet backgrounds that either ease the heart or quietly strain it. I have walked into homes where the air itself seemed heavy, where the constant noise of television, traffic, or arguments seemed to hum in the walls. And I've walked into others where there was a stillness you could feel in your chest, as if the heart finally had room to breathe. The body notices these things, even when the mind is busy elsewhere. Your kitchen, for example, can be a place of nourishment or quiet harm. A fridge filled with fresh, simple food makes it easy to feed your heart well without thinking too hard. But a counter lined with salty snacks, sugary drinks, and instant meals becomes a trap you fall into without even realizing. Prevention is often less about discipline and more about arranging your world so that the better choice is the easier one. The same is true for your work. An office where you never stand, where the light is harsh and the hours stretch without pause, can slowly teach your blood vessels to live in tension. The heart was built to carry you through movement, not to hold you frozen in the same chair for years. And then there is the pace of the space you live in. Some households move like rivers, with moments of stillness between the currents. Others feel like storms, every hour charged with urgency. That urgency seeps into your body. Your blood pressure does not drop just because you've left the desk. It carries the day's rhythm into the night. I once treated a teacher who had retired after decades in a noisy classroom. She told me she only realized how loud her days had been when they were suddenly quiet. For the first time in years, she could hear her own breathing. She said the silence felt like medicine, and over months, her blood pressure gently lowered without a single pill, simply because her body was no longer living in constant alert. We often think of health as a battle fought inside us. Blood pressure, cholesterol, heart rhythm, but in truth, the field of that battle is all around us. The chair you sit in, the food in your cupboards, the sounds that fill your evenings, the way the light falls in your bedroom. These are the walls that either shelter the heart or push it slowly toward harm. Changing the body begins with changing the room, not in grand, expensive ways, but in quiet shifts, removing what wears you down and inviting in what steadies you. Because your body is not separate from your surroundings, it is shaped by them. People talk about rest as if it's a luxury, something you earn only after finishing everything else. But the truth is, rest is not a prize. It's a foundation. Without it, even the strongest heart and clearest mind begin to fray. Sleep is the most obvious form of rest, but not all sleep is equal. You can close your eyes for 8 hours and still wake feeling as if you've been carrying stones all night. Real rest is more than the number of hours. It's the depth, the steadiness, the way the body is allowed to drift into its own slow rhythm, repairing what the day has worn thin. I've met people who sleep with the television on, or their phone. By their pillow, the light flickers, the notifications hum, and they wonder why they wake with a heartbeat that feels unsettled. Your body never fully steps into stillness if it believes it must be ready to react. Even in sleep, the heart listens for danger, and the blood pressure never truly settles. But rest is not only found in the night. There's a kind of recovery that happens in the day, the pause between conversations, The few minutes where you sit without reaching for a screen. The walk taken without needing to be anywhere quickly. These moments are like taking your heart off the clock, allowing it to beat without hurry. I remember a patient, a factory worker, who told me he couldn't remember the last time he sat down in silence. He would finish a shift, go home, turn on the radio, cook quickly, and fall into bed. The idea of sitting still felt strange to him, almost wasteful. But when he finally tried it, just 10 minutes on his porch in the evening, he said his chest felt lighter, his pulse slowed without him trying, and he began sleeping more deeply than he had in years. The heart and brain are not machines built to run endlessly. They are living tissues that depend on these moments of repair. Without them, stress chemicals stay high, inflammation rises, and the walls of your vessels lose their softness. Rest is not simply about feeling refreshed in the morning. It is about protecting the delicate architecture that keeps blood flowing where it should. We often measure our worth by how much we do, how much we finish, but the body does not reward endless output. It rewards balance, effort woven with pause, movement wrapped in stillness, and it remembers when you give it this balance, in lower blood pressure, in steadier heartbeats, in clearer thoughts. To prevent what we fear most, the stroke that steals speech, the heart attack that takes breath, we have to protect the quiet, not just the action, because in those quiet moments, the body heals the damage we never see. Not all risks to the heart and brain can be measured with a cuff or a lab test. Some are invisible, carried in the space between thoughts and breath, in the feelings we hold but never speak. I have seen it many times. A man who seems calm on the outside, polite, steady, never raising his voice, yet his blood pressure tells another story. It is not the sudden burst of anger that wears him down, but the years of holding it in, of swallowing every frustration until it settles in the body like a stone in a riverbed. Sadness, too, can be quiet but heavy. It doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it is simply the absence of joy, the long gray days that pass without color in the body. This can look like a slower recovery from stress, a constant low hum of hormones that keep the vessels tighter, the pulse just a little faster, and then there is the weight of worry, carried for so long it begins to feel normal. Perhaps it's worry for a child, for work, for a future that always feels uncertain. The heart does not know the difference between a real danger and an imagined one. It responds to both, beating harder, pushing blood faster, keeping the body in a state of readiness it was never meant to hold for years. I remember a woman who cared for her aging parents while working 2 jobs. She told me she didn't have time to be stressed. She was too busy moving from one responsibility to the next, but her body knew. Her pulse was quick even at rest. Her nights were restless, and her blood pressure crept higher with each visit. It was not weakness, it was the cost of carrying more than a heart was built to carry alone. This is why prevention is not only about what you eat or how you exercise. It is also about how you release what weighs you down. Sometimes that means speaking to a friend. Sometimes it means sitting in a quiet place and letting yourself feel what you've avoided. Sometimes it is simply the decision to let go of what cannot be fixed tonight. The body has its own memory. It keeps the record of every unspoken argument, every long night of worry, every moment we told ourselves to just keep going. To protect the heart and brain, we have to care for this memory, not by erasing it, but by giving it places to rest, because the truth is, emotions will live somewhere. If you don't let them out in words, they will find their way into your pulse, your pressure, the rhythm of your heartbeat, and over years, That rhythm can decide the difference between health and harm. No part of your health exists alone. The food you choose, the pace you move, the hours you sleep, the air you breathe, even the thoughts you carry. They do not act in isolation. They meet each other in the body, weaving together into a pattern. That becomes your future. A plate of salty food might raise your blood pressure for a few hours, but if you eat it after a night of poor sleep, while carrying the tension of an unresolved argument in a room that hums with constant noise, the effect multiplies. Each thread pulls a little tighter, and the heart has to work a little harder to keep the pattern from unraveling. The opposite is also true. A simple walk after dinner, taken in fresh air, with your phone left behind, can soften the impact of a day spent sitting. A quiet meal shared without hurry can lower your pulse more than you realize. Small acts, linked together, can form a net that catches you before you fall too far. I've watched patients try to fix their health by changing just one thing: cutting out sugar, starting to jog, buying supplements. But they often return, frustrated, because the change didn't last, or the results didn't come. The body is not a machine with one broken part to replace. It is a garden. And a garden needs care from many directions: sunlight, water, good soil, time. One man told me he thought he could outrun his stress by exercising harder. He went to the gym 6 days a week, but still felt his chest tighten during arguments at work. His blood pressure stayed high, not because the exercise failed, but because the rest of his life was still asking too much of his heart. We talk about preventing stroke and heart attack as if it's a list of separate instructions. But in truth, it's one story. A story about how you live in your own skin and in the world around you. It's the pattern of all your choices, the way they meet and blend into each other. If you look at your days closely, you can begin to see the web you've been weaving. Some threads are strong. Maybe you already eat well, or you have moments of laughter each day. Some threads are frayed. Maybe you sleep lightly, or carry too much silence in your chest. Prevention is simply the act of repairing the weak threads before they tear. The body does not demand perfection. It asks for balance. It forgives a salty meal if it's met with a long walk and a good night's sleep. It forgives a stressful week if it's followed by days of slowing down. But it cannot forgive being pulled tight in the same direction for years on end. Stroke and heart attack rarely arrive because of one choice. They arrive because the web was strained for too long. And one day, the final thread gave way. The good news is, you can begin to strengthen the web at any point, quietly, steadily, without rushing. Some people only begin to see their health after it is broken, when the words stroke or heart attack are no longer warnings but memories. And yet, most of the time, the story could have been different. You may think it's too late, that the years of rushing, the skipped checkups, the nights of restless sleep have already written the ending. But the body is remarkable in its will to heal. Give it a little less strain, a little more care, and it begins to respond quietly. At first, then with the strength you can feel. I've seen it happen. A man who lowered his blood pressure not with a radical diet, but with daily walks in the park. A woman who began sleeping deeply again after letting go of work she no longer needed to carry. A grandfather who replaced his afternoon cigarettes with sitting in the garden, breathing in the quiet. Their hearts didn't just beat longer, they beat better. Prevention is not about living in fear of disease. It is about living with respect for the days you are given. Each small act, a calmer meal, a slower breath, a softer word, is not just for your health. It is for the life that health allows you to keep. The truth is, no one can promise you a life without storms. But you can build a body and a heart that stands stronger when they come. You can give yourself a better chance to see more mornings, more laughter, more quiet evenings where the air feels light and safe. So take this not as a warning, but as an invitation to listen a little more closely, to rest a little more deeply, to let your heart live not only to keep you alive, but to let you truly live, not because someone told you to, not because you fear what might happen if you don't, but because, for now, you still have time. I understand that life doesn't slow down for us to take care of our health. In fact, the busier we get, the easier it is to let healthy habits slip quietly out the back door. One skipped walk here, one extra sugary drink there, a few nights of staying up too late, and before we realize it, weeks have passed. During those weeks, the silent risks, the ones we can't feel, are still building up inside us. That's why prevention is not just about starting healthy habits. It's about keeping them alive when life tries to pull us away. Think of it like tending a small fire. It doesn't need to burn bright all the time, but it must never be allowed to go out completely. Small, consistent actions keep that flame alive. Even on busy days, choose the 1 or 2 habits you can still hold on to. Maybe it's drinking enough water. Maybe it's taking a 5-minute walk after lunch. Maybe it's making sure you go to bed at a decent time at least a few nights a week. These small acts might not feel like much, but they are like steady drops of water on a stone. Over time they change its shape. And if you ever find yourself slipping for too long, don't think of it as failure. Think of it as a reminder, a gentle nudge to return to the path. The body is forgiving if we listen and act before the damage becomes too deep. Prevention is not a one-time decision. It's a quiet promise we keep renewing, day after day. In the end, protecting your heart and brain is not about living in fear of disease. It's about living in a way that allows you to be there, truly be there, for the people you love, for the moments you haven't yet lived. That is the real reward of staying the course. You don't need to change everything overnight. Stroke and heart attack are not just sudden events. They are the result of countless small moments, some that protect you, some that harm you. Every meal, every walk, every choice to rest instead of pushing through exhaustion, they all add up quietly in your body. You may not see the effect today or even next month, but the seeds you plant now will grow into the life you will live years from now. Prevention is not about fear, it's about freedom. The freedom to walk without shortness of breath, to laugh without chest pain, to wake up without the fog of constant fatigue. It's about keeping the doors open for all the moments you still want to experience. The birthdays, the sunsets, the conversations you haven't had yet. And the truth is, you hold more power than you realize. Every time you choose fresh over processed, water over soda, movement over sitting, calm over chaos, you are quietly protecting the heart that beats for you without rest. Every time you check your blood pressure, manage your stress, and listen to your body instead of ignoring its whispers, you are shaping a different future. These are not sacrifices, they are investments. Investments in a longer, fuller, more joyful life. So start small, but start today. Because the best time to protect your heart and brain was years ago, and the second best time is right now. Your future self is waiting, and they will thank you for every step you take. After all, life is not just about living longer, it's about living better. And that, my friend, is a choice you can make every single day.